Hey friends, what's up? This is Metro and welcome to my new all-updated Wraith build for this patch. Before we get into it, I thought I would show you a little clip of a really high Eternus level game to show off what the build can do. So here we go. Titanic magazine, boys.
Where is she? She ran back lane.
Okay, Metro's a raid boss, guys.
Meta's changed. This is a really big patch, really big Wraith nerf, so quite a few things changed in this patch. But Wraith is still insane in my opinion, a bit weaker in early game. I'm gonna assume you know what most of these items do. If you don't, check out my older videos on this channel that go into more detail. In this video, I'm going to focus strictly on what we changed compared to last time and why we changed it and why I think this is the new thing, the new meta for Wraith. I usually take a few days to test things, and funnily enough, I made like a build, like a new experimental patch, which was like completely different, and it popped off and it's popular now. But yeah, I updated my main build now. You can always find the up-to-date build in-game on Metro Wraith, but let's get right into it. In the laning stage, not really much changed, okay? Two things changed. A, we got rid of monster rounds, which I'll explain later. And B, we changed the order of the items a bit. And that's it, okay? We still start off with basic magazine most of the time, just to, you know, help you in lane, yada yada. We've talked about this item so much. A big change this patch is Wraith cards got nerfed. They now only do 70 base damage, okay? Before this patch, I would go for Mystic Burst for my first purple item, spirit item, because as you can read, it says you deal extra bonus damage, spirit damage, when your ability does 80 damage or more. So now the issue is Wraith cards only do 70. So we need a certain level of base spirit to get to that plus 80 damage. So we can use Mystic Burst again, okay? So I buy extra spirit first. A few people have asked me, why don't I go extra charge first? Thing is, it doesn't give you enough spirit power, right? You can do it if you want to get 3 cards really early that do less damage. You can go for extra charge first, but if you go for Mystic Burst first, it basically does nothing, okay? Because with Mystic Burst only, you're only going to get to 74 damage per card, which means the entire ability of Mystic Burst is not going to apply, okay? So make sure, if you follow this guide, to buy extra spirit before Mystic Burst, okay? Now, another option that is still really valid and a lot of people like to do is buy Infuser instead, okay? So you can definitely go Infuser instead of Mystic Burst or extra spirit, right? The thing with Infuser is, when you proc it, you do insane damage and you get spirit lifesteal, but again, it only lasts for 6 seconds, okay? So if you have like a more burst heavy combo and let's say you're in lane and you get up to 3 cards, right? You get up to 3 cards and the enemy pushes you, you can very easily pop Infuser. And then with Infuser instead of extra spirit, Mystic Burst will still work, right? Right now, even before you get the level 2 upgrade, that is gonna upgrade your damage by 50. Infuser works just as well. I just like in my playstyle to throw a card whenever I see the opportunity to do full damage, right? The only thing that is holding Mystic Burst back is a 6.2 second cooldown. So as long as you don't throw cards right after each other, you'll still get the bonus damage, right? And I like to harass in lane, put pressure on the enemy constantly and win the lane that way. And I can still go for the 3 burst later and kill them very easily, okay? And then we go right into extra stamina, which is even a bit better in this patch. It got slightly buffed. And sprint boots, okay? Extra regen and restorative shot, again, I buy when I need more health, when I'm low. And usually I go for extra regen first. It's a bit weaker now, it only gives a regen and not the extra 25 health. And then if I really need regen, I also buy restorative shot. But a lot of the games, I actually skip these 2 items completely. But extra regen, I buy a lot still. And that's everything that changed in the lane. Now you might ask, why am I not going for monster rounds, which I think are still a great option, okay? The reason being is, I went back to including Swift Striker in my build later on. And yeah, I know it doesn't matter early on, and you can very easily just pick up monster rounds as well. But you're gonna end up selling monster rounds really early, usually, because we get to Swift Striker pretty quickly, right? So if we follow the build 1-to-1 and we get to Fleetfoot, Quicksilver Reload, Farm and Tesla, by the time you get to Swift Striker, it's usually still pretty early mid-game, and I don't like selling that early, right? And I would rather skip the 500 that I spent on it and go right into Fleet Foot, Quicksilver Reload, and Tesla Bullets, which help my farming speed. I'm not gonna go over these few items because they're always gonna be the same, or at least for now, unless they get nerfed, right? This is what I always do. If you want to understand why I go in this order and what these items do, check out my last video before this, which was literally the build before this, where I go into the entire combo in detail. Tesla Bullets did get a slight buff. It now works with cooldown reduction. Not gonna matter for us much. I've seen some Wraith players run improved cooldown, but in reality that's really not worth it in my opinion, just to get the 16% lower cooldown, which means like 16% faster Tesla bounces. The purple slot is so occupied with us going for Quicksilver Reload and then Bullet Shredder, right? And by the time we have Bullet Shredder, if we don't have a flex slot, we have to sell Mystic Burst or Extra Spirit anyways. But the purple slots are already so occupied that I do not think it is worth going for improved cooldown, okay? Which I guess now is a good time to talk about it. Cards are pretty bad, not bad now, right? But like I think a pure card build is actually bad now. I think we're really in a meta where Gun Wraith is better. And I say this with like pretty high confidence because most Wraith players, even in pro play, at least run a hybrid or a full damage build nowadays. And cards are so weak now that you can't really do the entire combo where you just throw 4 cards and they die, right? They don't do enough damage anymore. So I really do think Gun Wraith is better than Card Wraith. Or at least go like a hybrid version. But this is a gun build, and this is what works best for me. Okay, so after these items, we talked about Combat Barrier, we talked about Bullet Shield. Swift Striker, I used to run this like back in the day, like 3 weeks ago. Swapped it out with Monster Rounds, but now it's back. I found, 2 reasons for it, okay? Reason number 1, the meta is a bit faster, I would say. It is easier to kill walkers, so Monster Rounds really don't like help that much with farming compared to Swift Striker anymore, in my opinion. But the main reason really is that we're now running Titanic Magazine. And Titanic Magazine, we have a lot of bullets in the mag, and if we have a lot of bullets in the mag, we want a higher fire rate. Fire rate is like the best stat for damage, right? The funny thing is, weapon damage is actually more about the fire rate than the weapon damage itself. Because the faster you get your bullets out, the faster you do everything. The faster you charge cards, and yeah, your DPS just increases massively, right? And 22% fire rate doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do the math, that's 2% more damage. And if you look at other items that are comparable to Swift Striker for the same price, you will realize none of these items actually give you that much damage. And even if you compare it to something like, let's say, Burst Fire, right? Compare the Burst Fire ability. It's actually quite close to how much damage some of these other, even 3k items do. Okay, so Swift Striker, I run it now again because we have a bigger magazine. With a smaller magazine, when we don't have Titanic Mag, you will have to reload very fast. And while we have Quicksilver Reload that allows us to reload pretty fast, it's not that great. But now we can afford the higher fire rate again, okay? And then we go into Bullet Shredder Resist. This item got changed. It now provides melee resist instead of 8% bullet resist, I think it was before. Not a big deal. Is probably about the same strength, right? Like if you get punched a lot, it probably does more. But yeah, not a big change. Still an amazing item. And we really, in this build, we really want to make sure that the enemy has as little bullet resist as possible. And this is the only item that we're running right now that, you know, reduces the enemy bullet resist, other than crippling headshot later in the late game. We did get rid of Hunter's Aura. And the reason being is, we're running back Titanic Mag. And the reason I'm running Titanic Mag again, even though I didn't like it until now, is it now gives you spirit resist instead of bullet resist, and it gives you melee resist. That does not sound like a lot, but in reality, especially early and mid-game, most of the damage you take is from spirit, okay? So this really allows us to keep on fighting without having to spend the extra money early into spirit armor, okay? So I think this just makes us way more tanky, and funnily enough, it's also great against something like Abrams or like a melee shift build, because it also now gives you 25% melee resist, okay? But here is where we deviate from the build again. We're now running Escalating Resilience. And this is really actually kind of a meta pick, okay? Because the meta is really back to at least some enemy players running bullet damage, okay? And this is the best item to counter bullet damage on Wraith. The only other items that you could run would be Metal Skin, which just makes us invulnerable, but like they don't give us any bonus damage, right? Other than the 8% fire rate, or you run Bullet Armor. But like, let's compare Improved Bullet Armor, which is 4,250 compared to Escalating. If you get the max stacks up, you have almost the same resist, while still getting the two main stats that you want on Wraith, right? Which is fire rate and weapon damage. So this item works out insanely well. The only way it doesn't work is if you don't shoot the enemy. Because you shoot so fast and you have so many bullets, right? Every bullet increases the stack by 2%. So getting to max stacks is actually really, really easy. And if you are at this point in the build, right? Like if let's say you follow the build 1-to-1 and you get to that point, up until Escalating Resilience, we basically only have to sell one purple item, because Titanic Mag also, you know, does override or does build from basic mag. So it's even easier to get this build going without having to sell anything, which is another improvement in my opinion. But let's assume at this point you should have a flex slot, probably two, right? Once you get to Escalating Resilience, I just want to show off how fast you actually get to it, because Wraith shoots so fast, even if you don't even activate full auto. Let's do this without full auto. Right now I'm on -5 bullet resist because I'm running Swift Striker. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, normal fire, and we are at max. That's literally 1.5 seconds of you shooting an enemy and you're at max bullet resist. So insane value item. Again, the meta is changing to hybrid, where a few people on the enemy team run bullet damage and a few people on the enemy team run spirit damage. So what does this mean in practice? In practice, this means this is probably the tankiest version of this build, or my build, that I've ever created, while still having almost the same damage. Because at this point, you have Spirit Armor, or Spirit Resist from Titanic Magazine, you have Melee Resist from both Bullet Shredder and Titanic, and you get Bullet Resist from Escalating, right? And at that point, I usually also buy Spirit Armor. And if I don't have a flex slot, I tend to sell extra stamina. And at this point, I'm mega tanky, right? I'm mega tanky, and we're like in the mid game. And here is where intensifying magazine is optional. It is adding even more value, and this item is insane, right? You can even run this instead of Titanic Magazine or Escalating if you want. And in some games I do. But in most games I just add this on top, right? But this is only really affordable if you have another flex slot. Reason being, now we're really at the point where we kind of want every orange item, right? We don't want to get rid of Fleetfoot. We don't want to get rid of Tesla that early, at least, because we're still in the mid game. We're still farming a lot. We don't want to get rid of Swift Striker because it gives us the fire rate. And we definitely don't want to get rid of Titanic or Escalating, right? So this is an optional pick if you have enough flex slots, if you can afford it, okay? Otherwise, I would go straight into Vampiric Burst. And Vampiric Burst just makes you even more tanky. If you engage in a fight and you pop this, as you saw in the clip earlier, you cannot die against anything unless you're like 1v5. This item is insane. It also got buffed. It now gives 175 bonus health instead of 150. But yeah, I think this is super solid. I have been experimenting with Siphon Bullets, and I put the Siphon Bullets as a new option in Situational. If you run Siphon Bullets, if you want, you should probably run Siphon Bullets and buy them first instead of Vampiric Burst. So Siphon Bullets now steal 55 max HP per stack from the enemy. And this is a really good tool if the fights last very long and you're going up against a lot of snipers, in my opinion, okay? Because you can shoot this from any distance and it's gonna do the max lifesteal of 55. The way Siphon Bullets works is every 0.8 seconds when you hit a shot, it's gonna steal 55 max HP from the enemy and give you 55, okay? So as you can see, I'm very far away, and this would be like sniper distance. You obviously play safe, you won't do a lot of damage, but you can kind of suck the enemy dry, okay? And this is going to give you a lot of health back. The reason it's not core in my build and only situational is, I think, if the enemy doesn't run snipers or has a lot of close range characters and you need more damage, there are better options. This is a very survivable, long fight kind of option, but, you know, I prefer the burst where I go in, I lift someone, I kill them, right? And then I go up to the next person, kill that person. So, Siphon Bullet's really good now. Really good. Not core in this build, but definitely playable. You should try it out. Crippling Headshot or Lucky Shot, always solid options, right? Crippling Headshot if you have more team fights with damage reduction, spirit resist. Lucky Shot or Inhibitor if you need to slow down the enemy, if they get away from you too fast. And of course, we've talked about Toxic Bullets time and time again, right? Must buy against Infernus or Abrams, or if the enemy has a lot of heal and sustain in general. But yeah, otherwise it is very close to the other build. Again, in starting from late game, every single one of those is situational. I almost always buy Vampiric, but then like if the enemy has a lot of stun, right, and they have Black Hole, like they have Dynamo, then I run Unstoppable, because then I can just run in, proc this, and like I won't get stunned for 6 seconds, and I can get a mass lift off. And Soul Rebirth, you know, in super late game, you have 2 lives, almost a must-have. Leech is even better, I think, now on Wraith, because it now gives cooldown reduction, so you get cards even faster. You can TP a bit faster, so this is also another great alternative. But yeah, that's about it. Every single day when I stream live on Twitch TV, not a sellout, well it is, you can follow me, but people ask about Shadow Weave. I know there's this Shadow Weave meta where Wraith players rush Shadow Weave, and in my opinion, it's a really poor choice to rush it now, right? It basically makes you a budget haze where you go invis, and yes, if you initiate and you go for a lot of ganks, this is playable, it's good. The reason I don't like it personally is it does not add a lot of damage, okay? The 55% spirit power does not add a lot of extra card damage to your ambush, if you do the math correctly, right? So I really think Shadow Weave was like a card Wraith option that is now way weaker. I think like if you compare it to Vampiric Burst, it's just better, right? Vampiric Burst, yeah, it only lasts for 4.5 seconds instead of 8, and it doesn't give you invis, but it gives you 100% lifesteal. You have permanent 25% extra weapon damage, right? More health and more move speed. I think this item is just better in most cases. But if you like that playstyle with Shadow Weave, you can definitely run Shadow Weave instead of Vampiric and just go invis and then like initiate the fight and get a guaranteed lift off, right? But I feel like if you're a good Wraith, if you have decent positioning, you will get the lift off no matter what, okay? Another item I should talk about, or let me reiterate, the reason I don't have Spirit Armor in the mid game is there are some games where I don't buy it, but utility is needed. Spirit Armor I buy almost every game, okay? Like it's almost always solid, okay? And the second item I not almost always buy, but buy against a lot of opponents is Slowing Hex. And Slowing Hex, I actually do rush and usually delay Bullet Shredder Resist or Quicksilver Reload. And Slowing Hex is a tool to stop the enemy from moving, and a lot of movement abilities fuck with Wraith's ult, right? So I would buy this against an Infernus. Slow lift makes it so he can't run away. Mirage, really big deal. Mirage is really strong in this meta, he got buffed. Mirage can't use Tornado when you do this, so if you want to fight a Mirage, use Slowing Hex, ult, and he can't Tornado and he can get a free kill, right? So Slowing Hex is an insane item. It's just, in my opinion, situational enough to put it in utility as needed. And some people might disagree. I know there's some Wraiths that run this item every single game, right? It's great against a lot of characters, but I buy it like probably like 30-40% of the time. And then Metal Skin, you know, king. Return Fire, cheap option. I should probably remove this. I almost never buy Return Fire anymore. I think at the 1250 point, you really don't kind of need it. Reactive Barrier got buffed. Really good against Bebop. Metal Skin we talked about, Ethereal Shift. You know, still a good option. Also better now, by the way. It gives you Spirit Resist now after you come out of the duration, and it gives you an insane movement speed. So it's better than before. Definitely an option. That's about it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. TLDR for this patch. Wraith does feel quite a bit weaker in lane. Like, it's harder to win 1v1s, right? Which means you'll also come out of the lane a bit weaker usually. So you'll have less money and you'll have to farm a bit more. Which means this build is going to be even better. Because, you know, the farming speed of this build is unmatched, in my opinion. With Fleetfoot, Quicksilver, and Tesla. And then now with Titanic Magazine, you can clear the entire map without reloading, basically. But Wraith is still an insane late game character. I think there's so much potential on this character still. Let me know if you have any comments. Until next time, see you friends. Bye bye.